strangulation. But you may not know about a growing trend. Parents who believe that they should share their beds with not just their infants, but their growing children. Dr. Nancy Snyderman decided to take a look.
We hear about it over and over. Teenagers committing unspeakable crimes. Children killing children. Parents left wondering why.
You're doing a good job.
But for Liz and John Grace, they believe the style of parenting they practice will inoculate their children against ever becoming so troubled. It's a grand claim for a simplistic child-rearing philosophy that some might find a bit strange. And it all starts with this, the family bed. Parents sharing the same bed with their children.
In this society today, which seems to be unraveling before our eyes, we need to invest in our children. I mean, this is, when people say you're giving too much, my God, these are human beings. You gave birth to them. The Lord gave you these children. Invest everything you can in them.
And the Grafes aren't alone in their beliefs. In fact, all of these parents practice the family bed. Dana and Greg Rutten share sleep with their 1.5- and 4-year-olds. Edward and Angela Budraka share sleep with their 5-year-olds. And at Carl and Jane McQuay's, children and parents are all in the same room.
We have the mommy and daddy bed, the little girl bed, and the baby girl bed.
How does this all work?
Wonderfully. I love the setup. I love the whole closeness of it and the connectedness of it.
What do your relatives think?
Depends on which ones you ask. My elder aunts and whatnot from Ohio are rolling their eyes, I'm sure.
I think you're a kook.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm an idiot. I'm out there in California, and, you know, that's how they do it out there.
Can I have a hug?
It's not the only place in the country, but luckily for these families, it's exactly where parenting guru and pediatrician William Sears happens to practice. With the approach of the millennium, Sears is touting the family bed as an integral part of what he calls the parenting style of the future, attachment parenting.
Do you believe that there's a connection between the violence that we're seeing among adolescents and how these kids are parented?
No, these are unconnected kids. They're looking for something to connect to. A gang, an identity. Attachment parented kids are very unlikely to ever shoot up a high school.
A bold statement, considering there have been no studies of attachment-parented kids now in their teens. But to Dr. Sears, the logic behind attachment parenting is clear. He says it's what parents would naturally do in the absence of baby books and doctors telling them what to do. And what does that mean? Well, mom and dad with baby as much as possible, for as long as possible, day and night, physically connected. It's referred to as high touch, the baby in your arms, at your breast, and in your bed.
At first, I thought it was a little,
Wacky?
not wacky, but yeah, strange. But then after, the more we thought about it, and especially I think when you start to look at, when you get the baby in your hands and you look out this little tiny baby, and people are starting to tell you, oh, you've got to start to separate yourself. You've got to put that baby in this other room. And you look down at this little baby and it just doesn't make sense. You know, it needs someone with them all the time, and that's the way it really should be.
And all the time truly means all the time. While other parents use the help of walkers, playpens, even strollers to give themselves a little downtime, 11-month-old Maddox McWay has never even set foot in one. The bulk of her short life has been spent in this device called a sling, an indispensable second appendage for attachment parents. Maddox stays attached to Jane most of the day by sling or, when necessary, by backpack. For Jane, this means while she cooks, works in the garden, and runs errands, basically all day long. Even 3.5-year-old Angie has picked up on the trend.
As you go through the chores every day, carrying her, and as she gets heavier and heavier and heavier, does your back take it?
On a high need day, I think, how am I going to do this? But you just do it.
And how do you interview parents who believe in attachment parenting? Well, not without the kids, of course.
Why attachment parenting? What's the big deal?
We really believe that attachment parenting will equip our children with the skills to meet the 21st century.
Why?
No doubt about it. Self-confidence, independence, high self-esteem, motivation. They'll be able to do anything. They'll be able to handle a really tough world.
I can swim.
You can swim too?
Yeah.
What's
a dog paddle.
Is that because you have a good mommy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I assume your parents may not have raised you this way.
No.
And you turned out okay.
We did. We turned out fine, but you know what? We can do an even better job with our kids.
There is no doubt these parents feel strongly about this philosophy, and breastfeeding plays a major role in forming the emotional bond that is so critical. The goal for these mothers, breastfeed as long as possible, at least until 2 years of age, what some experts now say is minimum for optimum health. But how about after age 2? The Bedrakis say it has done wonders for their daughter, Veronica.
Our daughter is almost 5. She'll be 5 next month, and she's a breastfed child and continuing to breastfeed.
She's breastfeeding at 5?
Right. That's right. And she can tell you, we can ask you, Veronica, how do you feel about breastfeeding?
I feel great. I think it's wonderful.
And why do you like it?
Because it makes me healthy and strong.
Oh.
Now, that sounds like a little adult talking.
Well, she is very mature for her age. This is already her second language that she's speaking, but the breastfeeding has made her very healthy.
So when she wants the breast, how does a 5-year-old ask?
They ask you with words. They specifically tell you, I would like to drink some milk now, please.
The criticism has been harsh, but Angela and Edward say all you have to do is look at Veronica to know that they are doing the right thing. But is it the extended breastfeeding, or could it be genetic? And if the goal of attachment parenting is to create healthy, self-sufficient, independent kids, how is this possible when these children are kept so dependent upon their parents? Surprisingly, we weren't the only ones wondering. So were Dana and Mike McNeese.
My concern has been, and we met with Dr. Sears about, was, gosh, are we overkill? Are we obsessing to the degree that, when he gets older, he's not going to have social skills with other children necessarily?
That is one of the biggest myths about attachment parenting, that the fear that they'll never become independent. Actually, it's just the opposite, because these kids learn to trust.
Do you think that parents should purposefully take time away from their parenting?
I think it's essential to parents. I think it's essential to children. Kids have to learn separation in gradual doses.
Dr. John Friel, psychologist and author of The 7 Worst Things Parents Do, says though there is scientific evidence to support many of the individual facets of attachment parenting, such as breastfeeding and the family bed, the assumption that if each aspect is good, then more of each is better has him very concerned, especially as kids get older.
I think there's so many other things that families can be doing nowadays to help kids be more attached that are less extreme, that's all.
Yet Friel admits there is no scientific research specifically on attachment parenting to prove it is psychologically harmful. But the co-sleeping part of it may be hazardous for another reason. Dr. Clifford Nelson, a forensic pathologist for the Oregon State Medical Examiner's Office, recently completed a 9-year study of 651 cases originally classified as sudden unexpected infant deaths. 183 of those occurred in a co-sleeping situation, the majority among newborns.
The problem with this is that what's not mentioned a lot of times is the potential risk factors, especially if an infant co-sleeps with an adult who fits one of the high-risk groups, which would be intoxicated, overweight, or exhausted.
In those cases, Dr. Nelson says an infant may be rolled on, suffocated in bedding, even caught between the mattress and other parts of the bed. He also added that adults who smoke should not co-sleep with their children. And a study released just last week by the American Medical Association supports Dr. Nelson's findings and puts parents on alert about the potentially fatal hazards of co-sleeping with children under the age of 2. Experts also worry about the psychological dangers, not to the kids, but to the parents. Too much focus on the children and not enough on the marriage, they say, inevitably leads to problems. And these parents reiterate that it takes a strong marriage to survive the demands of attachment parenting. And for the Grafes, though 5-year-old Rachel has now transitioned out of the family bed and 2-year-old Jacob is on the way out, Liz and John say they haven't spent one night alone in their bed in the last 5 years.
I would be lying if I didn't tell you there were times that I would like to wake up and it just be my husband there. But on the other hand, it simply does not feel right for us.
Which leads us to the inevitable.
Who wants to be brave and tell me how you have a sex life?
There are lots of other rooms. Remember when you were young? After you have kids, it changes forever anyway. And I think that you just have to be innovative, and it forces you to be a little bit more creative. Then some people will get into the same rut if they have that, quote, normal life.
Can you have both parents working outside of the house and still do attachment parenting? I don't see a resounding whoopee.
A few of the mothers say they've tried, but for the most part, they agree this type of parenting is not really conducive to both parents working outside the home. Yet, leave it to Dr. Sears to find the solution, one that not only surprised us, but also the AP mothers.
A lot of moms nowadays have the type of jobs that they can wear their babies to work. A clerk in a toy store, for example. It's a wonderful advertisement, a real estate agent. I think it's time, Nancy, that society catches up with working and mothering.
And while society may not be ready, these parents believe the investment they've made is already paying off in children who are empathetic, compassionate, and self-assured.
It looks like a permanent setup. Well, for as long as everybody's happy, it is, yeah. I hope it lasts for a long time.
What if Angie's 12, 13, still happy, still likes it in here?
Then I'm still happy. You know, I have found that even though she's little, she tells me more of her secrets right before she goes to bed and right when she gets up. And if that's what it takes when she's 13 and 14 and 15 and she's telling me, you know, Mom, this boy tried to kiss me or whatever it is, right before we go to sleep or first thing, I'm in there. I know what's going on.
You know, concerning that government study warning against children sleeping in their parents' bed, Dr. Sears says many more infants die in cribs every year than in adult beds. But what do you think of all this?
Well, I think most of all that if you were with people who lived in a tribal community,
In a third world country?
This is